Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. And welcome to the show, everybody. My name is Kevin McDonald, but you knew that. I don't know why I say that every time, Rochelle. I got to stop saying that because it's right there. And if you're in the video and if you're in the audio, you ought to be able to figure that out by now, don't you think?
Yeah, but, you know, we like to hear it. You're Kevin McDonald, and you're the only one who says it like that, so it's special.
I suppose, although I did just real quick, I got to tell you that I now know what it's going to be like when I have an obituary. Because I just looked up Kevin Scott McDonald, which is my full name, and the first thing that popped up was Kevin Scott McDonald died in 2023. So, and it was right there in bold print and everything. So anyway, we'll forget about that. We've got a great guest for you today. Her name is go ahead, Rochelle.
AdrenaJen is with us today. I'm going to love this conversation because everything that involves the idea of fear and challenging it to make it something that embraces you to challenge the better in yourself is everything you literally live for and you're all about. So thank you for being here. And how are you today? I love that you are coming with us straight from your RV.
Hi, Rochelle. Hi, Kevin. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast today. I'm coming live to you from the Oregon coast where I am living in my RV, and I'm in this great spot where it's super windy. It's excellent for kite surfing.
By the way, you don't sound like you're from around these parts. Where are you from originally?
Oh, well, I forget that I've got an accent, but Kevin, when you were saying your name, I was loving your accent. Well, my accent is from Australia. I was born and bred in Australia, but I came over to the US and I fell in love with a man from Montana. And so I now call the US home, and I forget every now and then that I've still got a bit of an Aussie accent, but when I go home to Australia, they all think I've got a US accent. So I'm probably a bit of a cocktail of both.
Love it.
That is the one accent that I've never been able to master. I'd love to be able to do that, but I can't, you know. I don't know why. It just doesn't work for me. But it's great to have you here. You are a speaker and you're a motivational coach, and you help and you just help people and get out of their own way. And why does fear do that to us?
Boy, yes, I do help people with overcoming fears and finding courage. And a lot of that started when I was about 4 years old, and my first job was being a ski instructor. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, 14, that's too young to be a ski instructor. But my parents decided that it would be a great idea for me to learn the techniques of teaching, and it would help my own skiing. So they lied about my age when I was 14 and got me into a ski instructor hiring clinic, and they offered me a job. And I had to confess up that I was only 14, but I would love to do it in my school holidays. And that was what I did. That was the first time I started coaching people, not just to ski, but to overcome their fears. Because when people are learning something new, whether it's skiing or learning to run their new business or having a new relationship, anything that we do that is new and unknown brings itself some fear. There's fear involved.
There is fear involved with a lot of different things, especially when things are happening in your world and things are changing for you, and they can be in a real positive way, and they can be something that you may have never experienced before. Why does fear come up in that space? Is it because you're worry that it's all going to collapse, or what is it about that? Do you know?
Fear is actually a natural response. We've all got it inside us, and it's a primal fear response that puts us into that fight, that flight, that freeze, or fawn, which is the fourth one not a lot of people talk about. But fear is a very uncomfortable feeling. We don't tend to like it very much, and we want to stop that fear feeling as fast as we can. But in my career, I've learned that fear is actually a good thing. It is wonderful to have fear sitting at our boardroom table and giving us some advice on things that we need to be aware of. Fear definitely helps us point out those red flags in our business or life or sport that we need to evaluate so that we can come up with a plan. But I think the most important thing to realize is that fear is not the CEO of our company. We can't let fear make the final decision, just to provide us with some information in order to make our decision of which way we'll go. Are we going to run away, or are we going to run to take action?
Rochelle?
Yeah, I think it comes into so many perspectives of your life, especially when things are new and it is uncomfortable, but making the positive of it. I'm kind of going through that right now in my life where it's like, okay, this is all healthy and I'm so happy. I have nothing to complain about, but it is new and it is uncomfortable and that is scary. But I love how you phrase it and put it in an artwork that is like, okay, well, what can you take from this? Because fear can be good. I mean, think about how many times in our life that we were like, hey, maybe we should think twice about this, because that fear was involved, that knew this could hurt us. This is going to have this repercussion. Whatever sense of knowledge that you do, you have that fear. If we didn't have that, we'd probably all die a lot sooner because we wouldn't be able to acknowledge whether something was good or bad. But it is very powerful. I think my question for you is, when you start going into that and you start reframing that and saying, okay, well, I'm going to allow this to have its place and I'm going to take a look at it. What are your next steps forward from that without taking it too seriously or reminding yourself, well, it doesn't have the final decision? How do you kind of help keep that healthy balance and keep it in its place at that table?
Great question, and I think it's really important when we think about fear. And I quite often say to people, "Well, what are you afraid of?" And they hear my Aussie accent and they instantly say, "Spiders, snakes, sharks," right?
Yep,
And we
yep.
do have we do have a lot of those in Australia. In fact, we have this big spider that's super common. It's about the size of your hand and it's hairy and it's fast, and they are everywhere. You'll find them in your bathroom, you'll find them in your car, but the worst is when you find them on the roof above your bed when it's time to go to sleep. There's no way you can go to sleep until you deal with it. So Aussie kids are taught at a young age, because dads just can't deal with all the spiders. We're taught at a young age how to deal with these spiders. And you know what? The huntsman spider, I mean, who named it the huntsman? It hunts man. I mean, they're actually harmless. They just look super scary. So it's not the spider that is actually dangerous. It's our minds that turn it into this monster. But we're taught at a young age how to deal with these spiders. And what you're going to need is a Tupperware container and a magazine. And you want to climb up on the bed with your plastic container and trap it underneath, right? And then you want to slide the magazine between the roof and the container. Now, not some flimsy gossip magazine, or you'll get a gap and that spider will run up your arm faster than you can scream. You need a stiff magazine so then you can flip it over and carefully take it outside. And then you can let it free. But you know what? It's going to come back probably a couple of days later, and fears like that too. It keeps coming back, but the more that we deal with it, the more we can handle. And I love talking about something called fear tolerance. So my fear tolerance as an Australian to spiders is quite large. I don't get too scared if I see a spider these days because I've dealt with so many. But my husband, he's this 6 foot tough guy who's a heli ski guide, and it's amazing how much fear he has when he sees this tiny little spider the size of my thumb. I'm definitely the spider catcher in our family.
Does he scream like a little girl? That's what I would do.
No, he doesn't scream like a little girl, that's for sure. But I like that I've got that responsibility in our family. But that example is there to teach us that we can blow things out of our minds and blow them up into something bigger than they actually are. So I ask them the question, the thing that you are scared of, are our lives really in danger? Is it life threatening? And most of the time, it's not. We have a fear of maybe going live on our social media. We have a fear of not being good enough when we're starting a new business. We have a fear of speaking on stages. But if we actually attempted those things, our lives aren't actually in danger. But if we see them as a threat and our minds go, what if this happens, what if this happens, what if this happens, and we get in that hamster wheel. I'm sure a lot of you understand what I'm talking about. We see the fear as a threat, and then that primal fear response comes in, and we want to run. We get angry, we just get stuck, which is a common term that you see a lot lately. People say, are you stuck? And that's that freeze response. But when I teaching my students, and whatever it is, whether it's skiing big mountains, whether it's kite surfing in the waves, or whether it's starting their new business, I like to say, let's think about that fear, and is it a threat that's threatening our lives, or is it a challenge? And as soon as we reframe that fear as a challenge, we've got the possibility of winning, of succeeding, of good things happening. And so I like to think that we need to use our adrenaline and learn to enjoy that feeling of adrenaline. If the fear doesn't feel so good, then learn to enjoy that adrenaline that kicks in, because that is also a natural response that we don't have a lot of control over. But when that adrenaline rush happens, our bodies go into this state of action. It's designed so we could outrun those wild animals, or survive that life or death situation. And so our eyesight becomes better, our hearing increases, our heart rate goes up, our bodies, it's like an inner superpower. Our bodies become ready for action. In fact, they even say that adrenaline dulls pain. And so, if we've got a headache and we don't feel like doing something, if we can actually start doing that thing and the adrenaline kicks in, we'll actually start feeling better, more energetic, and ready to take that action. And that's what an athlete does. Athletes really are attuned to using their adrenaline to get in the best positive mental and physical state in order to take that challenge head on. And then, of course, an athlete's doing it for the gold medal, the trophy, the recognition. But you may not be competing in a sporting race. We can still look at that challenge as the chance to win. And you know what? The reward is confidence. Once we overcome the fear, we find our courage, then we get the reward, which is feeling confident that we actually did it.
Mm.
So when I put the Tupperware, I'm still stuck on the spider, by the way. When you put the Tupperware up onto to the roof, and the spider is in the Tupperware, and then you lift up just the corner of it, and then you lose, and somehow the thing starts crawling up your arm. Only it's doing it like in a race, and it's going as fast as possible. Is that the adrenaline, or is that because that's what I mean, I would jump so high, so fast, and run away so quick. And then I would never be able to sleep in your damn country again.
Well, and I know that we need to take a break in a minute, but that brings me exactly to what I wanted to ask you, is because the teaching of that is so much deeper than a spider. You are not taught to react, kill the spider, and move on. Everybody's first reaction, kill that spider. My little cousin comes outside her skin, seeing a bug she thinks might be a spider, especially if it's under our bed. And I'm thinking, that spider's going to protect us. Now, none of the other bugs are getting in the bed, and it's away from us. But it's breathe, relax, and believe in yourself and handle it as something that's also living. Don't take life away from it. Just relocate it and deal with it as it comes, rather than every single time your entire life you've killed hundreds and thousands of spiders and never really gotten through that fear, right?
I love that attitude, Rochelle. Yeah, I'm definitely a lover of all Mother Nature's creatures, whether we think they're scary or hairy or whatever, whatever they look like.
Oh, scary
I always
and hairy.
scary and hairy. But if we can actually save the creature, that makes me feel proud of myself. I never feel very good when I actually have to take the life of that insect, animal, whatever it is. So I love your attitude, Rochelle. Good one.
If
Thanks,
if it's a size of your hand, that's not an insect. That's like a small cat, and especially if it's if it's furry and stuff. And by the way, my first reaction if I was to take it out of the room and to put it outside, as I turn around to go back in the house, I'll be able to hear him say, "I'll be back." We need to take a break. We'll be right back.
You became a real estate agent for freedom, success, and real momentum. So why are you still stuck waiting for closings to save you? I'm Ophir Adar, founder of Real Momentum, and I help agents like you become seven-figure earners. My first client that I coached, brand new agent, made $250,000 back in 2006. What's the secret? You feed your white wolf. That's the part of you that's bold and unstoppable and a closer and able to build rapport quickly. So click Get Listings at Real Momentum and let's unleash your real estate potential.
And welcome back to the show, everybody. We've got a great show for you today. And yes, you've been talking about spiders, but we're going to stop talking about spiders now because I'm thoroughly creeped out. But in any event, Jennie is with us. Pronounce her name correctly, Rochelle, please.
AdrenaJen is what it says.
I know, but I can't read that. So,
well, it's such a cool thing how you used your name in the way of how you live your life. I am not the only one sitting here but probably the only one to admit it sounds insane to try to, like, it makes sense, right? But to, in action, remind yourself in a moment of adrenaline, hey, this is good, I can use this. Because a lot of people, sometimes their brain doesn't really add up with that. So this whole idea of turning chaos and stress and what we see is into, wait, hold on, I have control. It seems insane. So can you help maybe break it down for people who are like, what does this even mean? And how am I supposed to frame this in my mind?
So we have a natural primal fear response, which is in all of us. So if you are feeling scared out there, it is totally natural. But we also have a natural response, which is a hormone inside us called adrenaline that comes into play when fear comes up and we need to find courage. Courage doesn't come without that adrenaline. For Kevin there, the adrenaline doesn't come when the spider runs up your arm. The adrenaline comes when you're going to get your plastic container. Your adrenaline's already starting to build, and it puts us in a state, puts us in a peak state, a peak mental state and a peak physical state. And a lot of people talk about that. You'll see Tony Robbins, who's talking about, okay, get your energy going, get moving. That is also getting your adrenaline pumping to get in that that peak state. So any sort of movement we take, splashing cold water on our face, is going to start activating our adrenaline. And so if we are in that state of fear and really scared or nervous about the next thing we're going to do, understanding that our adrenaline is actually going to come to the rescue. It's going to give us that superpower that we need to be able to focus and evaluate the situation and make some smart decisions. I love sharing the lessons that I've learned from extreme sports. I've done sports all my life, but I actually started off as a bit of a scaredy cat. My mum tells some amazingly embarrassing stories of me when I was a kid, screaming a lot and scared a lot. But I learned step by step that we can actually learn to overcome our fears, learn to embrace that feeling of adrenaline. And you finally get to the point where you might look at my Instagram and see all those photos of me skiing big mountains or kite surfing in big waves and go, wow, she was just born fearless. But I'm here to tell you that we can learn to do it step by step and increase our fear tolerance. The more that we deal with the fear, the better that we get at dealing with it.
Okay, so I loved how you talked about how you engage that too. When it's not already there and you're like, wait, I need this in this moment. How I do that? Splash the cold water, do the things, the pump ups, get your energy going. What if somebody came to you and they're like, okay, but isn't that living in fight or flight all the time? And how can that be healthy if you want to be in a calm and focused state? What would you tell them?
I would say that yes, living in a state of fear for too long, that's what creates anxiety and overwhelm. And it's a state of stress that is not healthy to spend in it. So adrenaline is actually the way of getting out of that stress and getting to that point where you are feeling like you've overcome that fear and that you've found that courage, and now you're in that challenge zone and you become confident and you feel like, yes, you've achieved something. And that's a great feeling to be in. Being proud of ourselves is very different from that original stress that started the situation. So my lessons are really here to help people get from that stressed, overwhelm, anxiety stage and break fear down I actually break it into 4 steps in order to get through to the courage, get to the other side, and then, feeling like a superhero because you've overcome that thing that was scaring you before.
How can you bring on and control the adrenaline at will?
You can once you've done a bit of training, like going to the gym and training any muscle that we've got in our body. Adrenaline is something that will happen unconsciously anyway, but it's really great to practice activating and then deactivating our adrenaline. So as Rochelle said, we can go back to that state of relaxation and calm. To live in a state of adrenaline all the time wouldn't be that healthy. And so it's important to really think about it in stages and make sure that we can turn it on and off. And the only way to learn how to do that is to practice. We need to get outside our comfort zone and go into the challenge zone, and then you get to the celebration zone.
Well, yes. Can you share the 4 steps that explain that?
Sure. Well, it's actually the word fear. Just to make it easy for you, 4 letters of fear are the 4 stages. So fear starts with an F. Now, F stands for forecast. We need to forecast our fear. I mean, if someone jumps out from behind a cupboard, I'm gonna scream. I'm gonna be scared because I didn't know it was coming. But if someone says to me, "Hey, Jen, I'm gonna jump out and say boo," it's not scary at all. We know it's coming. So let's name our fear and let's put it on the calendar so that we know when it's coming. When is that meeting with your boss that you're going to ask for a raise? When is that, scary situation coming? Put it in the calendar. That's step 1. Then the E in fear stands for educate. Now, when we educate ourselves and we learn some knowledge and some skills, it empowers us so that we feel more prepared. I had a lady tell me yesterday she was so scared of going in the ocean and she really didn't want to pass on that fear to her children. And I said, "Oh, what are you scared of?" I thought it might be sharks. She said, "No, it's jellyfish." She went to the beach one day, saw all these jellyfish over the sand, and she's now terrified of going in the water. She really wants to take her kids to the beach, but she was terrified. So we forecasted that she was going to go to the beach next weekend. And when I said to educate herself, what could we do? We could ring the local Coast Guard, or we could ring the local life-saving department and say, "Hey, have there been any swarms of jellyfish out there lately?" And more than likely, they're going to say, "No, we haven't seen any jellyfish. It's all good. Come down to the beach, swim between the flags, and it's going to be great." So then we now empowered ourselves with the knowledge that the thoughts we were having that there's always jellyfish in the water is not true, and that's quite empowering. Now the A in fear stands for adapt, adapting our mindset. And so in this situation, she had this vision in her head of there always being jellyfish and they were going to sting her, and it was super scary. But as athletes, we're taught to visualize the outcome. What do we want? And so I got her to visualize her being there and watching her kids splashing in the water, watching her kids run in and out with the small little waves chasing her, and how much joy she would feel being there with her kids in the water and having a great time. Then comes R in the word fear. And fear, the R stands for repeat. Repeat, 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 because confidence doesn't come with one-offs, it comes in reps. And so we want to do it again. So maybe put in your calendar to go to the beach again the weekend after, so that you can face your fear multiple times to build up that fear tolerance. Now, I shared that with her a couple of days ago, and believe it or not, I got a message from her yesterday. She sent a picture of her daughter splashing in the waves, and she was there and she had such a great time, and she just wanted to thank me for taking her through those steps, because it got her out of that what if thinking, that hamster wheel of negative, scary thoughts of what could happen if everything goes wrong, and got her into the mindset of what if everything went right? And you know what? It did go right. She had an amazing time. It brought tears to my eyes when I saw that the fear formula had helped her overcome a fear.
You know, and I got to ask you, why is it that our first go-to reaction is negative in a lot of people? There's training, I would suspect, that's got to be done to get people thinking in more of a positive mindset, as far as when they're feeling fear and their first reaction is, "Oh no, here it comes again, I'm going to fail again." Rather, is that training that you can do, or is that something that can be a learned response?
It's so natural to always think of the negative, and that's that survival instinct that we have. We're looking for all the dangers, so we're looking for all of the negatives as such, and that is a natural reaction. But yes, we can train ourselves to look at those negatives and evaluate them, of whether that's something that I can deal with, or is it something, no, I need to run away and exit. And it's part of the training that we learn as big mountain skiers when we do our avalanche courses, and we learn about avalanches, which is a huge danger in the mountains.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we're taught to look for what they call red flags. And a red flag is a danger that we need to evaluate. And so let's just say a group of people have decided, Kevin, a bunch of your friends, you've all decided you want to ski this big mountain on the weekend. You've got permission from your wives, you've got the time off work to travel there, and you've been planning this adventure for months. And you get to the location, you're so excited, and you look up at the mountain and it's beautiful, but it's a little overcast today, and so it's flat light and you can't really see all the contours in the snow. That would be a red flag. It would be added danger if we can't actually see the terrain on the snow. But if we've looked at the forecast and we can see that, you know what, the sun's going to come out later in the day, maybe we can still climb that mountain and make our adventure happen. That's just one red flag, the lack of visibility. Now, if the person in charge of forecasting said, you know what, everybody, it's a lot warmer today than it was yesterday. We call that rapid warming. And rapid warming means that the snow is going to get softer and it may not stick to the surface as well. So rapid warming is actually a red flag in terms of avalanche danger. So now we've got two red flags. Now we could choose to maybe ski on the shaded side of the mountain, which is going to be colder rather than the aspect that has the sun on. So we might be able to mitigate that danger also. But then we look at the mountain that is next to the one we want to ski, and we see signs of an avalanche on that same shady aspect that we were planning on skiing on this mountain. That's three red flags. If we see three red flags, we need to say, okay, that's too much danger. We can't climb this mountain today. We'll have to wait for another day. And the problem is that with the human factor, and this is a whole subject in avalanche training, we need to mitigate that human factor that gets us to sort of, it'll be right. No, the danger isn't that bad. And we can tend to overlook some of those dangers. And that's how a lot of people get caught out and get caught in an avalanche. They actually say having one female in your group, so everybody planning a boys trip, make sure you take a girl with you, because having a female in your group, we are built with that survival instinct that makes us great mothers, and we will tend to come up with a reason why maybe we shouldn't and plant that seed of maybe we shouldn't. So when we're talking about fear, rather than thinking of something as a negative and something as a positive, it's really just evaluating the fear and all of the things that could go wrong logically. And that's why that fear formula really helps, because we get to break it down into different areas and it gets us thinking about the possibilities of whether it's a good idea or not to overcome that fear or that danger today.
Well, it also helps because you're organized, you're planned, you've got an idea, rather than just going off half cocked and just going and doing it and hoping for the best, which is, by the way, what most men do. It's and when we do need a voice of reason to help us from doing that. By the way, we're talking with AdrenaJen, and we need to take a really quick break, and then when we come back, I want to ask her a couple of questions from my own history and see if it correlates. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
Welcome back, everybody. We've got a great show for you today. And AdrenaJen is with us, and I got to ask you a question. When I was in high school, one of the sports that I played was wrestling. And I wrestled, there was a guy that was the town bully. And he'd been in many, many fights. He'd lost a couple of teeth, many, many fights, but he was tough. He was really tough. And he was in my weight class. And when we wrestled this particular school, I knew that I was going to wrestle him. And so all day long, you're going to wrestle him. Oh my God. What's going to happen to you? Oh boy. And everybody kept telling me what negative thing was going to happen to me. And because I knew him and I knew his reputation, I bought into it. And you know what happened? It was, the prophecy was proved to be reality, because what ended up happening was I was completely devastated by this dude. Fast forward 2 weeks later, I go to another school and I'm on the wrestling team, and it's a 190-pound weight class. I'm 178 pounds, so I'm light for that. And I knew nothing about the guy that I was going to wrestle, not a thing. But when he was introduced, he got a standing ovation from the crowd. I didn't know why. I didn't care why. I didn't have the fear, if you will, because of his reputation that the other guy had. Well, it turns out this guy was the returning state championship. He had beaten that other guy badly 4 weeks before that. And because I didn't know any of that and didn't have the fear that went along with it, I beat him in the match. And that was, but so it was like fear was a self-fulfilling prophecy that I created in my own mind because of the stories other people told me what to believe in my own mind. But when I was left to my own devices, it didn't happen. And so is that a thing, or is that just me?
Great story. Congratulations, Kevin, for winning that next round. And
No, I'm not saying that he didn't beat the crap out of me, but I won. So that's what.
I love that story, and it really shows a couple of things, just how important visualizing is. And when we have people telling us about that first guy who was big and scary, and he was gonna kick your ass, and you bought into that, all of a sudden we're not visualizing winning and standing there at the end cheering because you've overcome him. If we were to use our fear formula on that particular situation, Kevin, you would have forecasted that the event was going to happen on this particular day at a particular time. And then when you were doing some education, maybe you could have looked up this big scary dude. Had he ever been beaten before? And if you'd actually seen that, hey, he's actually been beaten before by the other guy, it means that he is beatable, right? Whereas your original vision was that, boy, there's no chance in beating that big guy. So I think educating ourselves on the situation is just so important, and then adapting your mindset so you believe that there is a really good chance you can beat him, you can outsmart him. There's a skill that you've got that would be able to get that guy and nail him to the ground, and then repeating, going for another match. Once you sort of win one match, then you believe that it's possible and you can do it again. So for you, remembering those matches that you'd already won in the past would have got your body in that state of adrenaline, and your body believing that you were going to win again and that you had all of the skills to win again. And then the second situation where you didn't know about that guy, you just went into that knowing your skills, focused on yourself instead of being focused on that other guy and competing with him. You were just believing in your own skills, and maybe you had that vision of that you were going to win this match, whether people were cheering or not. That's just my take from listening to your story, but it reinforces how important visualizing the outcome is, and that's something that every single Olympic athlete practices so much. They train their minds as well as their bodies, and to believe that we can do it, visualize, manifest, write it down, what it's going to feel like when you actually win, can help us more than we realize.
Yep.
Now, I needed to ask you one other thing, because there's a lot of people that are in our audience that says, no, I've heard from all kinds of people that, and that the acronym for fear is false evidence appearing real. And how do you square those two philosophies?
I think any way that you can turn fear, the negative of fear, into a positive to overcome your fear is a great one. I just wanted to come up with an actual 4-step process that made us think outside the square rather than just a quote or a saying that's supposed to make us feel better. Okay, false evidence appearing real. But now what? Whereas I think the formula actually gives us a step-by-step process, which has definitely worked for me and has worked for many other people that I've coached also.
Well, you see, but no, they never get to that part. They get to the, oh no, fear is just false evidence appearing real. Well, it's legitimate. You feel fear. As an example, a good friend of mine was driving her brand new, beautiful car, and the light turned yellow, and she did the right thing and stopped. Well, another person didn't, and hit a motorcycle, and that was a very fearful situation for everybody, wasn't it, Rochelle?
Yeah, it was. And it was also a moment of like, when you're in tune and in touch with those things, I love how the way that you perceive this idea of bringing it in, but also allowing it to be out, because I was in an adrenaline moment. I had made a last minute decision, realized I haven't eaten today, and I decided to go to McDonald's. I don't eat at McDonald's. It was a last minute thing, but it was an intuition thing that was like, hey, first of all, you need food. And second of all, whatever you're feeling right now is because you need food. There's nothing that is putting your life in danger. And I stopped. I literally stopped. I didn't have control of the situation. I responded exactly as I put myself in that moment and decided to surrender. And it could have happened so many other ways, but I would have been involved if it would have happened that way. The guy survived and he will be okay. He was a 21-year-old kid and probably had some experience because he did everything in his power to avoid it. But even in that moment, thinking back to it and replaying it over and over and over and over again, it's hard to remember at first, but there was that moment when I thought I had saw the back tire go over his head, and I just stopped. And the only words that came out of my mouth to my 16-year-old cousin as I'm in shock was, there's no way he's alive. And then all of a sudden, what happened? It kicked back in. Because I allowed it to have its moment to be out, I was calm. But then the adrenaline came back in and I rushed out of my car. My sandals came flying off. I ran into the middle of the intersection, saw that he was breathing, he was moving, he was making noise. And then I just responded to it. But I think I have to give myself a little bit of proudness too in that moment to be like, hey, if you wouldn't have been listening to yourself and just had stayed behind that car and not have been paying attention, so many things could have gone so many different ways. But I decided the outlook of it in that moment. I could have decided, no, you know what? I want food and I'm pissed and everybody needs to get out of my way, and blasted through that yellow light and not had been paying attention to anything around me. And I love how you put that perception into the reality of it is real. Whether it's fear, whether it's not, it is real. You know why? Because of the outcome. If you see something like, I'm going to say, I'm going to go swimming with my best friend tomorrow. And I'm like, oh my gosh, but we have the baby and there might be wind. And what if something happens? I'm literally setting that up to become my reality, rather than to just say, this is going to be one of the most beautiful, magical days. I'm going to get to experience this. And maybe I'll be there to help someone else in a moment of tragedy, rather than to place yourself in it. So thank you for bringing that up, because you brought up manifestation. And that's what I was going to ask you is, you literally are manifesting and creating your reality by how you choose to deal with, I guess, fear, right?
What a great story, Brichelle, and what a great example of something so scary. You couldn't have forecasted that. You had no idea it was going to happen, and you felt the fear, and then the adrenaline kicked in, and you became the superhero that raced over to the rescue in order to help that guy. And I mean, what an amazing experience. Scary, and I'm glad it had a great outcome. I had something similar happen when I was up in Alaska. I was up there in a remote village. My job was to teach the Inuit kids how to fly kites. And I'd gone up there and I was so excited because I heard that this village was famous for polar bear viewing. And I really wanted to see a polar bear in the wild. But when I got up there, the locals told me, no, you're wrong time of year, Jen. It's May. You won't see the polar bears till August. They're out on the sea ice. And so maybe my guard came down a little bit. And one night it was midnight and the sun was about to set, and I'd never seen this before in my life. And I went out with a bunch of my friends there. We had some dogs with us. They said, grab your kite, Jennie. I'm a professional kite flyer, and I teach people to fly kites with their skis and snowboard on, and that's what I was going to do with these kids. And I had my kite flying, and the next thing I know, the girl behind me yells, bear, bear. And I look over and I seriously see a polar bear charging towards me. And instantly, my primal fear response kicked in. Wild animal, what do we do? And it didn't matter how many posters I read. No, like every single place I went into had polar bear posters, what to do if you see one. We're supposed to stand our ground. We're supposed to wave our arms. We're supposed to yell, hey, bear, hey, bear. Well, what do you think I did? I ran.
Got behind the next slowest person. That's what I would have done.
Well, what happens when I was at the back? Now, I definitely wasn't the slowest person, but I was definitely the one at the back. And I turned and I started running. And the only thing that made me feel better just for a second was I saw the backs of everybody else and they were running too. But the next thing that happened was I fell flat on my face. I couldn't quite figure out what had happened. And as I was getting up and I look over at the bear, it's now about 100 feet away. And all the things are going around in my head. Oh my God, this could be it. I don't have a weapon. What am I going to do? Why did I fall over? And I realized that I was still attached to the leash of my kite. And so the wind was blowing my kite one way and I was running the other. And so essentially my kite became an anchor and anchored me down, and I'd fallen flat on my face. And as I got up, I knew that I just had to get that leash off because that was what was preventing me from running away. And the bear's still charging at me. I'm looking in its eyes, seeing its feet flopping towards me. And I finally got that leash off. And the wind blew my kite away, and I watched the bear turn and chase my kite. So that day, my kite saved my life that day, and I call the wind my best friend. And my best friend also came to the rescue that day, and the bear taught me what real primal fear feels like. Just like you, Brichelle, when you had that accident, that was real primal fear. And that's then our adrenaline comes in, and I was able to run away. I was so glad that not only did I survive, but the bear also survived. They have these guys called Polar Bear Patrol, and they're driving around on a snowmobile with two guns in the back, and one shoots bullets and one shoots fireworks. And luckily, by the time it got there, the bear was not threatening my life. So they shot fireworks at it to scare it out of the village. So I survived, the bear survived, and I've lived to tell this tale. And boy, did my fear tolerance change that day. It's definitely, I've seen what real fear feels like, and therefore when I'm feeling those other fears that we all get of not being good enough, what if I fail, imposter syndrome, what if, I realize that yes, that is fear, but it's a low level fear, and we can definitely deal with that.
Exactly. We need to take a break. But then, by the way, we're talking with a very, very brave woman because most of the time, you know what happens when you have a scenario like you just described? The bear has lunch. We'll be right back.
When the game is on the line, championship teams know the game plan. They communicate and work together to win. We all need a game plan to protect ourselves online. Talk to family and friends so they know how to stay safe too. Create strong passwords, turn on multi-factor authentication, update software, and recognize and report phishing, because online safety is not something you want to fumble. Get more game-winning tips at CISA.gov/secure our world. Then share them with family and friends.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. Michelle is here. Michelle, can you imagine that? Just because you're a very brave woman, Jen. Because I probably would have soiled myself, but that's beside the point. But that is an amazing story, and at the end of that, when the adrenaline came down a little bit, were you shaking? Did you cry? Did you think that this was going to be that was? I mean, because you probably saw your life flash before your eyes, and wondering what it was going to be like when he chomped down on your neck and stuff like that. And just a thought.
Yeah. Well, and I have to pitch in too, because you didn't just turn around and be like, give that reaction. I probably would have been that person. I would have stopped instantly. I would have tried to scare the hell out of that bear. My little teeny tiny self would have been rage mode. But you didn't do that either. You realized that all in that moment, it had to do with the kite, and it wasn't just about you. The bear wasn't just coming for you. So realizing that probably was different as well, right?
So many things, so many feelings, and so many thoughts happened afterwards, Kevin, that I think I realized that bears are curious. And I really believe that bear wasn't coming to eat me. He was just coming to figure out what that thing was flying around in the sky that he'd seen from a distance. He'd seen the kite, he was curious, and ultimately when he saw the kite moving, he chased the bear as well. And I did a lot of research about polar bears after that, and they're definitely my spirit animal, and I love polar bears. Michelle, I had been manifesting wanting to see a polar bear so badly. When I was planning on going up there, my friend painted me a hat that had a polar bear on the front. I had a little stuffed polar bear with me. I wanted to see a polar bear so badly. And so, again, this was another situation where I really feel like manifesting works. I had set myself up to actually see that bear. There was definitely 5 of us in this situation, and when we went back and did our debrief, everybody dealt with it very differently. Some people were crying and overwhelmed of grief. They were the people that thought that I'd actually been attacked or killed. They had run away. They didn't see what had happened with the kite, and so in their head, the vision of me being mauled by this bear was still there. And they had a very different reaction to the guy who saw me fall over, and he stopped and he started yelling and waving his arms behind me, and he watched the whole thing go through. And so he and I definitely were a lot calmer than the people who didn't actually see what happened in the end, which was quite amazing. I didn't actually cry for a couple of days because there was no reception up there. I couldn't call my mum. I couldn't call my husband. I really wanted to share that story with my family. And when I did get the chance to do that, the emotions did come up, and I was able to release that emotion that had just built up. But before that, I actually stayed in this state of being brave. And it was amazing. The next day I went to back to the school, and when I arrived at the school, I seriously had hundreds of kids run up to me, give me a hug, and say, we're so glad you're okay, AdrenaJen. And I was able to interview them and ask them questions about, hey, have you seen a polar bear? And to them, it was normal. It was kind of like me with the spiders. They're like, oh, yeah, one day I was trying to go to school and I couldn't open the front door and there was a polar bear leaning up against it. And another one was telling me that there was one outside his window and it was huffing and leaving marks on the window. And so they had all these stories of polar bears, and because they grew up with that fear, it was kind of more normal to them. And so their reaction was very, very different to other people's who don't know anything about polar bears. That most people are like, it wanted to eat you, it wanted to eat you. And I'm like, no, I really don't believe that. I got to see it in action. If it wanted to eat me, it would have, and it didn't. It chased the kite, which was fascinating to me.
That's almost cute. Yeah, it's just playing with something out in nature, just being curious, like we all are.
Maybe it had HTH or it had ADHD, and it was like, I'm gonna get her. Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Who knows?
I really believe that. I really believe the bear saw the kite from a distance and was just curious. And I mean, we're all curious, and I'm just so grateful to the universe for that situation, to survive to tell this tale and to have an experience like that, and for me to be able to share that with people and make them realize that sometimes our fears are blown out of proportion, that in reality we have an amazing body, an amazing mind, and we can deal with most things that actually are thrown our way, whether it's bears, whether it's illness, or whether it's just something that happens day to day in your life that scares you.
It's spiders. Yeah, no question. It's spiders. AdrenaJen, I want you to tell everybody, since you're a speaker, if somebody wants to get a hold of you so that you can come speak in front of their group and scare the bejesus out of them and stuff, and then recover them again, how do they get a hold of you?
Oh, I would love to. I love sharing my stories and my lessons for life. I mean, I've got so many stories that I can share with your group. Please reach out to me. You can find me at AdrenaJen all over the place. You'll find me on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I've also got a website, and I would absolutely love and come and speak to your group or your business, and or actually take you out on an adventure. I run these retreats up in Alaska where people come up there and they go outside their comfort and sometimes outside their temperature zone, and I show them how to stay warm. We go inside glacial ice caves. We do a bunch of different activities that really give us a challenge in a safe environment, and everybody that attends those events goes home and realizes that, boy, they're braver than they thought they were, and nothing tends to scare them as much anymore. It's an amazing experience. So reach out and say hi. I'd love to share more with you.
And I'll never do that again would be what I would say. Rochelle, any last words?
No, just thank you so much, AdrenaJen. And I keep thinking, it's powerful how you handled that situation too, because if the bear would have approached you and at one point had been fearful of you and attacked you because it now felt like it was in fear but wasn't chasing you in the first place, we do that same thing where we start to bring something on, but we can always let it go. So thank you for being here, for sharing that. Someday, I don't know about how I feel about Alaska. That's the one thing you'll catch me. I hate being cold, but I will send everybody your way, and I cannot wait to stay in touch with you and hear about all the adventures that are to come. So we wish you the best.
Thanks so much for having me, you guys. I've loved chatting with you, and yeah, I will hopefully hear from you again.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. You're far more adventuresome than I am. Of course, I'm a little older now, and I like my comfort and my bed. So you do you. Thank you, AdrenaJen, and you have a great day. And thank everybody for listening. And Rochelle, thank you. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got.